Well, welcome to Dominate Your Day. Today I have a really special guest, Erin Duncan. And Erin is somebody I met, oh my gosh, was it 9 years ago, Erin? I think 9 or 10
Yes,
years ago,
almost a decade. Yes.
almost a decade ago. Erin was a fairly new leader in our department, and I got to kind of be her onboarding partner and mentor her through. And we've just kept in touch. And one of the things I really am passionate about here at Dominate Your Day is helping leaders transform from the inside out. And we have gone through a lot in our culture over the last 4 years with COVID. And I loved, Erin and I caught up a couple of months ago, and I loved what she's doing with her life and how she's transforming. So I invited her to come on the podcast. So welcome, Erin. Thank you for being here today. Erin is a strategic advisor, a smart cookie, and has really an amazing journey. So I would love for you just to kind of jump right in and tell the folks a little bit about you and this amazing transformation you've been through over the last couple of years.
Well, thanks, Dana, and thanks for having me. And I am really passionate about this too because of the profound impact uh, a lack of well-being had on my life for a short period of time, and
Mm,
how hard it was for me to then take the steps I needed to take my life back, really, and live my life and not just where I was getting pulled in different directions, which is quite easy to do. We're in a world where there's so much going on. We're really driven people that want to succeed. And, that's where I'd start my story is that I've always been someone who loves challenges, loves problem solving, loves making an impact, loves taking on big projects. And in the beginning of 2021, I was asked to take a new role that was going to really require a huge transformation. And I'm not talking about my personal transformation. I'm talking
mm,
about a team
the company.
transformation, the company. Yes.
Hmm.
A team that needed to be completely restructured, work that needed to be completely defined and restructured, new processes, everything. And I knew that it was going to be very difficult. And I really thrive on taking roles that are either setting something up or transforming something. And so I said, yes, I'm in. And I fully was aware of the effort it was going to take. I told my husband, listen, I'm going to be very, I'm not going to be around. I might be
Mm.
missing in action quite a bit over the next 6 months, but it's going to be short term. I'm going to tackle this. And then in 6 months, I can, spend time with the family again and take some pressure off of you. And we have two girls that at the time were, 9 and 11. And so,
Mm.
not super young, but still young enough where there's a lot of work that goes into it. And
Hmm.
and truly, I was really thriving in my job. And so, a lot of times people think, oh, you transformed and moved to something that gave you more well-being because you didn't like it. And when I'm honest with myself, I loved it. But uh, what really happened is over time, I was ignoring so many other pieces of my well-being. I was thriving in career and financial aspects of well-being, but when you think of all the other pieces of well-being, there's emotional, physical, intellectual. You need to be stimulated in a lot of different ways. Social, spiritual,
Community. Yes.
community, yeah, and relationships. And I had this mindset of, well, that can all wait. That can all wait. I'll get to
Hmm.
that later. And
Hmm.
what happened is truly my body started revolting against me. I started having immense pain, so much pain that I couldn't even go an hour without feeling pain. I had gained weight. I had started getting elevated blood pressure, not so bad that I needed medication, but it was all these warning signs. And truly, Dana, it took a good friend of mine who's what I would call in my personal board of directors who said, Erin, you keep telling me that you're going to keep working so hard at this and you're going to change it. And you've been saying that for a year now. And now you're telling me you have all these, your body's, you know, telling you all these things,
Breaking
and
down.
you're not listening. You're not listening to the signals being sent to you. And his advice to me was you need to really create some decision criteria and a timeline to make a decision, because what you're doing is not sustainable. And so that was really my wake up call, Dana, to make my transformation.
So if you're driving, if you're jogging, if you're walking right now, or if you're on your way to work, I want you to listen to this because I think as female leaders, entrepreneurs, we just think we can do it all. And we think we have to do it the way the generation before us did it. And we don't realize there's another way, and that well being is part of our journey in making ourselves more whole. And I loved how you talked about that you just kept going, but your friend who's on your personal board of directors, which we love to talk about, who's on your virtual board of directors that you trust that will tell you in the middle of the night, your 2 a.m. friend, you got to stop this. This is something wrong. We want to make sure we have people like that in our lives. So your transformation started with that person really calling you out, right?
Absolutely.
It wasn't your
Absolutely.
husband or one of your social friends because they're kind of thinking, oh, this is her gig. You're an engineer by trade. You like to figure things out. You had this great opportunity. You were doing well in those, in the, like you said, the financial area of well-being, and the in your career, your purpose, but everything else was suffering. And I think that's why it's so important to measure ourselves every week. How are we doing? Because otherwise we get a train wreck, right?
Yeah,
And
and it's interesting you say measure, Dana, because I actually think that that's part of the challenge with certain areas of well-being, because
yes.
career is easily measured, um, uh, financial easily measured. How do you measure uh, spiritual? How do you measure relationships? Right?
Hmm.
We know that it's very meaningful and it matters a lot, but because the metrics are not so clear, it's so much easier to get that dopamine rush from the things that you can actually see and they're
Measure.
more tangible. Yeah.
And this is exactly why, and we're going to talk about your strengths in a minute, but this is exactly why I put in the strengths journal, which is the accompanied guide, the only daily planner based on your strengths. But within there weekly, rate your well-being 1 to 5, because I found during COVID, my physical was just out. It wasn't happening, right? So I hired somebody to come in and help us. And then I used my futuristic to help me figure out, okay, what would happen if I don't work out? So
Right.
you were probably using some of your talents to help you, but I think in a 1 to 5 or one, whatever you want to give yourself, did I get to spend time with my friends last week, or was I all work, 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 work? Did I get to spend time with family? Did I have my spiritual time in the morning? Did I get to have that just space in the calendar? And I think so many of us don't know how to even get in the habit of checking that, or even thinking about it. So you got this wake up call from this friend, and he said, and I love the word that you used, decision, because this has been a big part of who you are as a strategist, is helping people learn how to make purposeful decisions. So how did you use that on yourself as you were going through this? The body's breaking down, you're not with your family, not having your spirit. What did you do?
Well, I took a couple actions. One, I mean, I wish I would have had that strengths journal, Dana, because I didn't set very good boundaries at the beginning of that job, because of course I
Mm,
thought, oh, it's short term. And I think that, really asking myself those questions would have helped me set better boundaries at the beginning. But I had to start thinking about, okay, what kind of boundaries can what can I control? So I started
mm-hmm,
taking some actions on my own in terms of how can I um, make things better for myself. I I also started going to a therapist to try to get
mm-hmm.
to the root of what is driving me to feel as if I have to put 200% every day into my work,
Mm-hmm.
because some of it was the actual job, but a lot of it was me, right?
Mm-hmm.
How I was um, really programmed over my 25-year career to operate. And then I also had to just really take a step back and put my own life strategy together and really think about, and it sounds a little bit morbid, but you know I had to step back and say, okay, where am I in the arc of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not what do I want next in my career, or what's making me driving me right this second, but if I take a step back and look at, how long I think I'm going to live, and chunk that up into different phases. I'd gone through the learning phase, like preparing for career, that's your
Mm-hmm.
education. And then, I had, 25 years of doing all the things I should do, right? To grow my career, to grow as a person, to advance. Um, and I started realizing, like, I have a lot left, but I don't really have to spend it doing all the shoulds anymore. I can start
Mm-hmm.
really allowing myself to do what's really feeding me, and something that will allow me to have that balance of well-being. And I looked at, really, what do I what do I want to have accomplished, or at the end of my life? And did
Mm-hmm.
I actually put, you have two main resources in life, right? You have time and money. And if you look
Mm-hmm.
at where I was putting my time against what I would tell you are my priorities, it was a complete mismatch. I was saying
Mm-hmm.
my family was more important than work, but in reality, I was not living that. And so I had to really reconcile that with myself to say, am I actually making daily decisions that align with my life strategy and
Mm-hmm.
goals? And the answer was no, I was not. And that really helped me decide, okay, um, I need to take action, and I need to get back to, just like a business does, a business that's a strategy and then says, okay, what are the top 3 to 5 things that are going to get me to that end goal? And if a business just focused on what was happening that day and not focused on those 3 to 5 most important things that move them to, the next level,
Mm-hmm.
then you stay stagnant. You stay in a circle and a cycle, and that you'll never get out of. And so to break out of that cycle, I had to really, really think about where are the places I need to put my resources to move ahead.
So let's stop for a moment because you mentioned some great things there. You put up some boundaries. You got a therapist. You kind of looked back at your. I have people kind of plan their 90th birthday and who's there and what do you feel and what have you
Yeah.
done, and some people you have futuristic. So let's talk about your strengths right now. So tell us your strengths, your
So
Clifton
my
strengths.
my Clifton strengths are individualism,
Mm-hmm.
futuristic, activator, command, and oh my gosh, you just tested me.
Significance.
Significance,
Significance. Yeah.
correct. Actually, that's one I had to keep in check, because significance is about, you're working on important things. And that's what I was really getting out of my job. I had to completely reframe that one. I had to say, wait, not how significant is my role in this project, or my, you know, um, where am I in leadership, and what am I actually doing to hit marks at
Mm-hmm.
work, and say, I have to rethink that one and say, what am I giving back to the world? you know,
Mm.
how does this translate to the
Mm-hmm.
importance to society?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just had to reframe that one. But in terms
Mm-hmm.
of my strengths, futuristic really, really helped me imagine that
Mm-hmm.
different future,
Mm-hmm.
and motivate me
Mm-hmm.
to take action. So I think, and I've always been in strategic roles, and futuristic is one of those strategic
Mm-hmm.
strengths that I lean on a lot.
So I heard all five of those when you were talking about just what you were doing and the decisions you were making. I'm almost thinking because you have individualization and that's a customizer. So you were customizing something for yourself in the midst of all this. So you brought in a therapist, you brought in, you had your friend. Was there somebody earlier? in your career that was role modeling this work hard, do good kind of thing? Was it a parent, an aunt, uncle, somebody that you looked up to? I know and we can talk about your education and your career, but who were those people that kind of you had those, or that significance that came in? Where did that come from?
You know, I know that I constantly, ever since I was younger, I wanted to, it sounds like achiever, but it was really about significance. I
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to do something impactful. I always wanted to be on the most important projects. I always wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, do something I thought was meaningful. And then I would work as hard as possible to make it happen. I think that, my dad was definitely a lot like that. I always laugh that I get my feeling of always having to be productive from my grandfather, who just passed away last year, and up until the
Mm,
very end made lists every day. And and when he couldn't
cute.
actually perform the lists every day, he would leave them out for other people.
He was
these are all
delegating
the
back.
these are all the things. And so, I think it was just innate that
Mm-hmm.
you don't stay idle. You are always moving forward. You're always contributing. You never let up, so
Mm-hmm.
I think that was just ingrained in me growing up.
Absolutely. So when you started your career, you went right into engineering. Was there somebody that who influenced you to do that? Was there somebody in your life that was an engineer, or you just kind of liked math and science and kind of pull all this together and strategy and said, I'm gonna be an engineer.
My dad was an engineer, so I think that's one
Ah.
of the things I'd tell people is that, I don't necessarily regret doing it, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't choose that because I thought that would be the career I'd enjoy. I chose it because it was really practical, right? I did like math and
Mm-hmm.
science. And, I had a dad that said, look, I'll pay for 4 years, but you're on your own. You got to get a job, go do the research and see what kind of, you know, degrees get you stable jobs with good starting salaries. And so, um, it's not that I regret it because I really learned how to be a problem solver and I really learned how to
Mm-hmm.
work hard. Those are the two things I took away. And I don't use any of the engineering, but I use those skill sets, on a daily basis. I will say though that it took me a long time though to really understand what I liked, what drove me to do that, and that I could find those things in other places, and I didn't
Mm.
have to actually be in jobs that I didn't like. And so, and that goes back to the shoulds. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the world tells you you should do something practical. You should do a get on a ladder and climb it straight up. You should do these
Mm-hmm.
things. And when I relate that to well-being, that means you're not listening to all these other parts of your life. You're getting
Mm-hmm.
on a ladder and you're just going up because you should do it. And maybe sometimes you should be a rock climber and you should go over
Mm-hmm.
here because you can still go up, but maybe you need to go up in a different way depending on where you are in life. And I think
Mm-hmm.
everyone is an individual and has different needs and talents. But I also think, even I look at myself, I've had different phases of my life where it made sense to put more into career versus another time. It made sense that I had to invest more in certain relationships and in certain times. And so I think that, one of the analogies I've been thinking about ever since I made this change is, we put so much effort into thinking about our financial portfolios and, you know, the wisdom of saving early and then, you change your portfolio over time. I mean, really that's how I think about those buckets of well-being is
Mm-hmm.
that you never want any of your well-being buckets empty, but the levels that are in each one might change over time, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay, but you just can't completely ignore any one area. You have to say, okay, I've got to pay attention to all these, but there's not a formula that says, if you do these few things every day, you need to do them all equally day by
Yeah.
day, year by year. You have to
Mm-mm.
flex with who you are and you have to flex with what's going on in your world.
And what you're saying is so true. And I think it's breaking through of what well-being is and that we're not one dimensional. and that we are many dimensions. And the generation before us, it was all about the ladder, or the several generations before us. Now it's about, okay, what does the lattice look like? And as you say, the rock climbing look like. So when you were in your engineering career, and then you said, you know what, I think I want to do something else. I think there's more in me. What happened there? How did you get into how did that happen where you decided to get your MBA?
What I realized was I was really seen as you talked about one dimensional. I had stayed, which I graduated college in '99, and so a lot of my friends were in the dot-com boom, and so they changed roles like 5 times in 5 years, and I had been in the same role for a while, and I realized that how if I went to go look for another job, other companies saw me as an engineer that could do sales, but I would always be in a technical industry, and I really wanted to get more on the business side, and it really relates to decision making. I really enjoyed the problem solving of engineering, but I really wanted to be on the business side, making decisions, product decisions, and I decided, an MBA would really give me more flexibility. So help me. Give me flexibility not just across functions but also across industries, and I have to say that my experience was that absolutely was true. I've been able to be, since business school, in finance, marketing, strategy, customer insights and customer experience, innovation, and I've been in uh, CPG, airlines, education, beauty, direct selling. So it really, really did deliver on giving me that flexibility to, be on that lattice that you talked about.
So you made the change. You saw that you needed to change, and that was your one of the first big pivot probably in your life. And then you got into having the experiences in marketing and finance and all the different places you were. And then you got to this point we talked about earlier where you were like, I can't do this anymore. It's not who I am. My well-being suffering. I'm feeling sick. When you got to your therapist, your friend kind of gave you the wake up call. How long did it take you to make this decision? And what did you use? What was your decision making criteria that you used that helped you move to this next pivot?
Yeah. So it took me 6 months, and the reason why it took me 6 months is because I put a 6 month timeline on it. So
Ah, there you go.
I feel very confident that if I would not have done that, I would have uh, stayed a lot longer,
Mm-hmm.
because, like I said, it wasn't that I didn't like what I was doing, and wasn't that I didn't feel satisfaction from it. It was that I really had to pay attention to my body, and
Mm-hmm.
I even had my dad tell me, Erin, you're not old, but you do know you could have like a stroke or something, something that, like some kind of big life event that, is it really worth it? And so,
Mm-hmm.
I set a timeline, and then I think it's important to point out that in any situation, you really have three choices. You can accept the situation, and I was
Mm-hmm.
learning that I couldn't really just accept it the way it was because I was not healthy. You can change it,
Mm-hmm.
and so I put some criteria around what it would mean to change, or
Mm-hmm.
you can leave, right? And so there's different flavors in all three of those choices, right? But those are the three general choices you have in any situation that you're not happy
Mm-hmm.
in. And so um, I decided, look, I'm going to keep trying to change this. One, I need to see my boundaries respected in my day, both by me and others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, Two, I need to see that I'm not in pain anymore, because
Mm-hmm.
that's something actually you think you can control, but you can't. It was the level of stress, right? Um, and three, signals that some of the and I won't go into all the details, but some of the opportunities, some of the things that were happening in the organization that were driving a lot of churn and extra time that I didn't need to see it fully change, but I needed to see decisions made by
Mm-hmm.
leadership that showed that they were going in the right direction. So I wasn't saying, hey, within 6 months, I need to see, the organization change for me. No, I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
no, I need to see signs that what I realized really, Dana, was that I was doing all the things really in my space that I could control, but some of my pain points I couldn't control. And so what I said, I need to see some big actions, not necessarily all the results yet in some of those spaces,
Mm-hmm.
um, to know that things are actually going to change, versus just hoping. Like my friend
Mm-hmm.
said,
That
you
they would
just keep
change.
saying the same thing over and over. So those were the criteria around change, and knowing that I couldn't accept it. It was like, is it going to change based on these three criteria, or am I going to have to let go?
Mm. So you made that decision. I think that we always say that book, The Body Keeps the Score. Like you said, stress, you don't know where it's come, but your body's just reacting. So when you got to that point where you said, okay, I need to step down, step off of the Ferris wheel and get off and really take care of myself. How did that feel when you were going in to tell your team, okay, I'm gonna leave. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna take some time and then I'm gonna figure things out. Was that freeing? Did you feel some freedom there?
Um, well, I not when I was telling my team. When I was telling my
No.
team, the absolute hardest part about leaving was leaving my team. Um,
Yeah.
that was, that was the hardest thing. And so, there's wisdom out there, never cry at work. Well, I violated that day. I definitely had tears when I said
You're
goodbye to my
human.
team. Yes, and that's where I say work. There's work relationships, and those are meaningful.
Yes.
Your well being, your work and your workplace. I think the number one thing I've taken away from every place I've worked is relationships. I mean, case in point, I'm
Mm-hmm.
on this podcast with you,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'd say that was hard. I had freedom from the stress. So it was mixed. I had sadness about leaving my team. I had freedom from the stress, but I also had to, there was a reckoning with my ego,
Mm.
to say my identity has always been I work hard. I can solve every problem thrown at me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quit. I'm a I'm a career woman who can make this work with my kids and my job and everything. And I just had to, the hardest thing was really accepting that I was quitting to create opportunities to do something else. It's not that I was a quitter. It was that you can't move on to something else unless you create that space. And I had to
Mm-hmm.
really think of it that way, because the hardest part was my identity was so tied to my work and my career.
I am so glad you brought that up because I think there is this belief that we are who our title is at work. And what you have been doing in this whole transformation is really working on your personal brand throughout as you've been deciding what does Erin need and who is she right now. And I was reminded of I did take a time off to be with my daughter and do nonprofit work and I still worked, but I changed and I had this same feeling. I cried when I left and and she was like, what are you doing? You were gone and now you're here with me. And I had to find my place and I had to put those boundaries up and, and get out of the right. And it was hard and nobody else was doing that. And there wasn't a lot of support. But I had to figure that out. And so what I love about your story is you figured it out and you've created some new boundaries for yourself. So that happened, what, a year ago where you stepped down? Was it about a year ago?
Yeah, I uh my last day was in May. I let them know in April. And so it's been
Wow.
almost a year, and Dana, I have to say that like I had to create all new criteria for what it meant. And I was even for a long time saying, well, I won't, I think it's easier to say it's all or nothing, right? You either work or you don't work, or you either
Mm-hmm.
are in corporate or you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've realized is when I brand myself as a strategic advisor, and I have criteria around what I'm going to design my work to work around my life of well-being. What I've
Mm-hmm.
realized is that there are a million different options,
Mm-hmm.
um, even in between. So I started out just doing my own thing. It ends up now I'm in a hybrid situation. I have a full-time job where I get to be a internal consultant slash strategic advisor within a company. I get to learn, I get to grow, I get to contribute, I get to coach people. I don't have the big team and leadership, but it's it's fulfilling the work that I love to do. And I have time to have all kinds of other interests, read more books, and I even get to do some small projects on the side. I am a strategic advisor to a small company, trying to figure out how to get another revenue stream. I'll even, other people, as I've made this transition, I've had a lot of people reaching out to me to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I feel similarly. What was your journey? Help me make these decisions. And so I've even, accidentally gotten into some coaching in that space. And so, um, you know, when you're not working, over 60 hours a week, you have a lot of time. You can do a full-time job and have space
Be with your
to not
family
only do
and
your well-being and everything else, but then fill your cup other ways. Like just, I
mm-hmm.
feel uh, much less one-dimensional, or even I would say two-dimensional before, where all I could do was really my
Mm-hmm.
job and fit my family in where I could. I feel like I'm able to really add value in a lot of different places, and it's just been so wonderful.
So, talk about one of the things we were talking about when we met a couple of months ago was the fact that you have had to put some boundaries up because you get into this new role as an advisor and they want you to do more. And, oh, what about this job? And how have you kept your boundaries up so that you can be focused on what you need to do for yourself?
Yeah, I have to really remind myself that there's a lot of things I can do. Could I go do
Mm-hmm.
something else? Sure. Could I decide to get back into the career path? Sure. Would I like it? Yes. But
Mm-hmm.
I had to say, like, really, what is the core of who I am? And no matter what role I've been in, Dana, whether I've been a
Mm-hmm.
leader of a bigger team, whether I've been when I was a financial analyst, individual contributor in finance, I look at every job I've had, and they might have all had different titles. They might have been in different companies and different functions, but every single role I've had, what I've most enjoyed is helping people make the right decision. And whether that's
Mm-hmm.
through data analysis, whether that's through setting a strategy that makes your direction clear, I had to really think about it's not about the title. It's not about
Mm-hmm.
the level of responsibility. It's about what do I love to do? What's my vocation? And my vocation is a strategic advisor. And so what I do is I say, but what I'm saying now is I don't need to have all these other pieces that are just, um, I guess, status symbols in the world of
Mm-hmm.
success. Success to me is my boundary is I'm going to be a strategic advisor. I I want to put all my energy into advising on decisions versus all the other things you get caught up in which being a leader is very important, and I loved it. But that's not where I'm at right now. I am
Mm-hmm.
in a place where what creates space for me to do other things is being able to put my energy into that core thing that I love. And it's really worked for me.
And I think there's a message here I want for everybody to take away. And this is what I'm passionate about. And it's exactly what you said is you are a strategic advisor and you love helping people make purposeful decisions. Boom. There's your one liner. That's who you are, no matter if you're in a company working for yourself. And I think so many of us, whether we think we're in a company, we don't think we have to personally brand ourselves, but we really do, because you're building a brand within your company, you're building a brand outside of your company, and it's what keeps you going. It's that purpose. It's like, what is the meaningful work that I'm doing right now? And I love how you use the word now. This is what I need right now. There's seasons. There's times when you might do a little bit more. There's time when you might do a bit less, but you're getting to pivot, and you're getting to test the waters, and you're getting to put the boundaries up and say, these are my absolute non-negotiables. These are my negotiables. And I think that there's power in that. And that's a big piece of this whole personal branding, well-being, and owning who you are. So I'm excited about your story. I'm excited about people hearing this story and changing the paradigm about what they think about their career story and how that looks and the transformation that you've been through. So as we get ready to kind of wind down, I want you to think about anything that you haven't gotten to share with our audience about your transformation of where you were then and where you are now. And any tips that you want to share with our audience. You've shared a lot, I mean, about just how to even think about change and decision making with accepting, changing, and then or leaving. But what are some thoughts that are coming up for you right now that you want to tell those people out there that are just stuck?
Yeah, I think that I could give a lot of Dana. I've learned so much. I could
You
spend
could
another
write
hour with
books.
you. Yeah, I could
I
write
want
a
you to
book
write
about
a
it.
book.
I hope to do that at one point. But yeah, I think the number one thing, it's something we all know, but I think it's something that is um, constantly hard to do, no matter what age you are and no matter what position you're in, and that is stop comparing yourself.
Mm,
Um, I think that,
mhm,
there's a quote, I think it was Theodore Roosevelt who said, comparison is the thief of joy.
mhm,
And when it goes back to decisions, think about, why are you making that decision? Do you really want that because it's bringing you joy, or do you want that because it really looks good
mm,
on the outside? And
mm.
I have two middle school girls, and sometimes I find myself, thinking, oh, so silly, the things that they compare and, um, you know, uh, get stressed out about as a middle school
Mhm.
girl, and what do people think of me? And, really, it's hypocritical because we all do it. We all
Absolutely.
are programmed to care and to
Mhm.
care about what people think, and there's nothing bad about being inspired by
Mhm.
others, but even if two people get to the same place, they probably got there differently, and
Mhm.
that's why there's strengths. People can deliver differently because they're different people. They bring different things. And what I had to really, and I still have to every day think about it is, you know, what what game am I playing? Am
Mm.
I playing somebody else's game, or am I playing
Mhm.
my game? Am I winning my way? And
Mhm.
my way and my actual goal might be different than someone else's. And so I do think it's hard because corporations are set up. You see somebody else get promoted. Oh my gosh, like, well, I could do that too. And of course you can. I think it's just, what, and I'm not saying it's bad to take it. It's just, if that's your game and you're playing your game, totally
Mhm.
fine. But if you're doing it because you think it's what you should do to show growth in your career, well, there's a lot of ways to grow, right? You can grow
Mhm.
sideways, you can grow up, you can grow, I think just always make sure that you're you're making decisions for you and your personal strategy and based on your strengths and who you are and what makes you happy. And I think that sums up every other piece of advice I would give, Dana.
I love that, Erin, and I love that you went to strengths, because that you're one in 33 million. There's not another Erin out there, and you've been created for a purpose. And I think the other thing you mentioned that I want to make, I heard this on a call the other day with another coachee, and it was like, what? are you doing that you're not happy about? Because she was trying to do something she thought she should be doing as a leader, but it was the should that came in. And when you think about the why, that's so important. And when you think about who you are and what you've done, Erin, for your transformation, and instead of living your day in default, you're designing your days now. You're designing your life.
Absolutely. And I think that's the big mistake of people and companies is letting, it's important to know what's going on out there, right? It's important to do
Mm-hmm.
competitive analysis and see if you're competitive, but you don't go do something just because another company does it. And you don't make a decision for yourself just because someone else is doing it and it's great for them. And, you know, very obvious wisdom that is just so hard to execute because you have to execute it through every single decision you make every single day. And to have the discipline around it is really the key. So it's really about being clear. And, like I say in Decision Vector, your decisions should have a direction, and that direction will help you with speed. I think everyone will get to where they need to be eventually. It's just how many years do you want to spend in the shoulds versus going faster toward who you really are and what really uh, makes you your whole person.
Erin, bing, boom. I mean, I think we could set up three different podcasts, one on each of those subjects, just on decision making, on personal branding, and on well-being. And today we kind of just touched on all three of those, but we didn't go as deep. But so I want to have you come back, and I can't wait for our team to hear this. They're going to be going, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So how can people reach you in the interim if they want to hear more about your story or learn more about Decision Factor? What would be the best way to reach you?
Yes, the best way to reach me is you can find me at decision-vector.com. You can also email me at Erin.Duncan. I can't even say my name. Erin.Duncan at decisionvectoradvisors.com. But I'd love to hear from you. I'm also out on LinkedIn, Erin Duncan. And Dana, I can send you that link. But
Yes,
I'd
we'll
love
put
to
all that.
hear people's thoughts because it's a journey. I'm still learning too. And, whenever I talk to others, there's similarities in the journey and there's differences in the journey. And everyone has their own wisdom and something to bring. So I'd love to learn from others as well, what you're going through and where we can connect to move each
Hmm.
other forward.
I love that, Erin. Thank you for being a difference maker. And thank you for stopping and getting off the merry-go-round and saying, I need to change something. I'm going to start designing my life. And you did. So, congratulations for the
Thank
pivot
you.
and for the difference you're going to make in, as you said, helping other people make decisions that are purposeful. So, thank you for being here today. It was awesome. I can't wait to have you back and we'll go deep in some of these other subjects.
Well, thank you, Dana. I respect you so much. And actually, you were the one of the people I thought of when I made this transformation because
Oh,
you've been able to actually do a transformation while you were working at a company and then take that with you on your own. And so
yeah.
that's so admirable. And I'll always look up to you for that. You're an inspiration to me.
Oh, thank you, Erin. Thank you. Okay, we'll see you guys next week, and I can't wait to get Erin back again. So thank you, Erin.